Joining me now is California Congressman Garamendi. He's on the Armed Services Committee and the chair of the subcommittee on readiness, among other things. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. As you're watching what's unfolding, what is your reaction?
Well, basically, I see three things here, some of which you've already covered. The military situation is evolving very, very quickly. But the thing that's really important here is the power of the people. We need to keep in mind that it was in 1991 that Ukraine voted to be independent of Russia. In 2014, they threw off the yoke of Russia's leaders at that time and established a move to the West. And very, very powerful movement at that time. That didn't go away. Similarly, in Russia. The second thing is we will institute the strongest set of sanctions against any country ever over the next week, and probably beginning tomorrow when the president speaks to the nation. Congress has to follow up, and early next week, I would expect that we would put together a very robust, very extensive package of sanctions that the president can impose upon Russia. We talked about, Jack talked very well about the issues of the oligarchs and the like. The Russian economy is half the size of the California economy. And it is not a very strong economy dependent on exports. The military is also dependent upon the importation of various parts and pieces to keep their military going. They've got their own supply chain problem. And so those sanctions are going to go into place. The third issue is that we have the Biden administration, together with Congress, has once again established a very solid NATO alliance. Donald Trump spent 4 years doing everything he could to create disarray, discord, and lack of unity within the NATO. That's ended. Putin has put that back together. I just left the three-day conference in Brussels with parliamentarians from all 30 NATO countries. They're standing firm. And frankly, to my surprise, the European Union got ahead of NATO, got ahead actually of President Biden, and established its own set of very strong sanctions. Tomorrow, Putin's going to get a wake-up call. His alarm's going to go off, and his banking system will not have access to the international markets. And he won't be able to float bonds on the international markets, and he won't be able to get the resupply for his military. And he's dependent upon gas and oil. And the United States has already worked around the world to begin to shift the supply of natural gas from various places. Japan, for example, turn that around and bring that natural gas into Europe, Western Europe, to replace the gas that will probably be cut off from Russia. Nord Stream 2 is history now. So there are a lot of issues in play. 1, 2, 3. All of those are going to play out. And I would be very, very shocked as those sanctions go into place, as the heat and the cold turns up in Russia, as their economy begins to weaken, that the people of Russia will do what they did over the last several years, and that is go to the streets. And I think you're going to see the same thing in Ukraine as if and when Russia actually takes over these cities or attempts to do so. So it's a real difficult, dangerous. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it is interesting. Japan has imposed sanctions on Russia. Japan was hesitant to do so before this because they were trying to build a better relationship with Russia. So far, who Russia has by its side in terms of major superpowers in the world, it seems China, at least for now, and right now India is refusing to go strongly against Russia, given... Congressman, hold on 1 second, because I do want to dip in to the European Commission, the executive branch of the EU. Leaders are speaking right now on this crisis. Let's hear.
It's about the future of our global community. And we will stand united with our transatlantic partners and with all European nations in defending this position. We stand united in saying that no violence and destruction as means to obtain political gains. We, the European Union, remain the stronger group of nations in the world, and this should not be underestimated. More immediately, we will be designing urgent assistance to Ukraine in this dire situation. We will also be active in supporting evacuation operations, including of our own staff in zones affected by this Russian attack. The European Union, together with transatlantic and like-minded partners, have made unprecedented efforts to achieve a diplomatic solution to the security crisis caused by Russia. But Russia has not reciprocated these efforts and instead has opted unilaterally for a grave and premeditated escalation conducting to war. President Putin needs to stop this senseless aggression. And today our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine. We will stand with them.
There were European leaders of the European Commission, which is the executive branch of the EU. You just listened to Joseph Borrell speak. He is one of the leaders. Again, the West, the European Union, NATO, the United States, all are in unity right now. They're unified in condemning what Russia is doing. Congressman, are you surprised the amount of solidarity, just all the solidarity that's out there among Western allies? There were moments in the beginning of this crisis when American intelligence had the intelligence that suggested that Russia was planning an invasion. As we saw the troop buildup around Ukraine, there was some worry that, a country like Germany wasn't going to get on board because they were so reliant on Nord Stream 2. All of that has changed.
It certainly has. Putin did what many people thought would be impossible. He has managed, with this Ukraine attack, to unify really the world against him. The European Union statement that you just heard is extraordinarily important. It is difficult for the European Union to agree on who's going to make the most out of the pear crop in the spring and summer. But they've come together. They have come together very, very strong. They're going to issue more sanctions, and that's going to be a very serious problem for Russia. And NATO is totally unified now. Keep in mind that Trump spent 4 years doing everything he could to tear it apart. And when Biden came into office, it was in disarray. And so we need to really appreciate the extraordinary work that the Biden administration has done to rally and to solidify and to create the solidarity, not only with NATO, but now with the European Union. You had mentioned China before. The foreign minister of China said something that's very important, but has really been ignored along the way, and that is they are not in support of this attack in Ukraine. They've stood back from it. It's been the policy of China for years to not interfere in other nations. So we'll see where China is on this. So we're going to find in the days ahead more and more countries coming together to support Ukraine. The United States Congress has already passed in the National Defense Authorization Act increased support. The appropriations in the Congress are about to be completed, and we're already in those appropriations more financial support. Biden has issued $1 billion loan guarantee for Ukraine sovereign debt so that they could finance the war and the various support that will be needed for the people of Ukraine. So many, many pieces are coming together here. What is the problem is the immediate war that's underway. People are dying. People will be harmed, and the civilians as well as the military. And Russia's going to have great pain and great trauma inflicted on them also, because the Ukraine army has been fighting for the last 8 years against Russia already, so they know the game. So it's going to be a vicious, nasty war, and it may very well, as we're beginning to see, turn out to be an urban war. And there's nothing worse. Urban war is just horrendous. So we need to stand with Ukraine. We need to not only hopes and prayers and thought, but also money, supplies, ammunition, And we're going to have to deal with the refugees that will undoubtedly, that are already leaving. It's going to be a tough
long
several
lines
weeks
on
and months.
highways.
Yes.
We're seeing long lines at rail stations. And
Exactly.
you mentioned the loss of life. We are already hearing the first reports of casualties. A bombing in Podolsk, which is in the Odessa region, 6 dead, 7 wounded, 19 missing. Those numbers, unfortunately, are expected to rise. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.